DRC. The mission has been here for many, many years as well, with the task of providing stability and protecting the people. Today, over 7 million people have been displaced in the DRC, internally displaced, and that is also due to the most recent actions taken by Rwanda. Rwanda has repeatedly provoked such situations for many years, and there have not been any countermeasures taken, no measures taken to ascertain the territorial integrity of the DRC. And that, of course, leads to reactions, and other countries might use that as a role model. It's a precedent that is created. Now, of course, it's a complex issue. The entire conflict itself is very complex, but I think we quickly have to tackle these issues because, in particular, on our continent, on the African continent, this can set a precedent that can lead to more instability.
Missions with stronger mandates, which you get from a new composition of Security Council. Kaya Kallas, for the European Union and European Union members that have always been strong supporters of the UN, how do you look at the UN right now when the United States is withdrawing from the World Health Organization, withdrawing from the UN Human Rights Council, withdrawing from, I think, UNESCO, etc.? How do you look at that? Is Europe ready to take a lead there in defending the UN Charter?
Yes, first I would go back in history. Why United Nations was established after the Second World War, that there would be no more wars in the world. So the UN Charter states the principles, how the states should communicate with each other and what rights the states have. What we see now is that we have powers constantly violating UN Charter when it comes to Russia attacking Ukraine, when it comes to Congo, what is happening in Congo, when it comes to different wars in the world. So clearly the rules are not functioning correctly. The principles are still there, and EU stands behind all those principles when it comes to territorial integrity, sovereignty of countries. But we definitely have to really develop the international law further, because what we heard when President Xi of China visited President Putin of Russia, and he said there that you and I together, China and Russia together, we are leading the changes in the world not seen in 100 years. So I think this is something that we need to really keep an eye on. What the international order lacks is accountability. I mean, the principles are there, but what happens if you really violate those principles? And there we really need to work for the accountability so that we can prevent wars in the future. But I think every international crisis what we have had in history is also the room for developing the international law further. And we really need to get our act together, all those who believe in multilateralism, and like the previous speaker was saying, there is no alternative really. We have to do things together if we want to prevent peace. By the way, one of the elements of the United Nations when it was established, and the Security Council that was also established there was that there would not be, nuclear weapons for the smaller countries, because the bigger countries will keep peace in the world. But right now, if we see that this is not happening, I mean, then of course we could also see the proliferation of nuclear weapons, because that seems to be the only thing that protects you, and that is one very dangerous world.
Yes, but still, you also say that the principle as such, we should continue to adhere, make clear that also there is accountability for violation, etc. Volker, where you sit, responsible for human rights, defending human rights, when you get up in the morning, I mean, you must have had a nightmare before, because when you look at violations of international humanitarian law, international human rights law, it must be, as I said, a nightmare for you. How do you describe the situation, and what is the remedy?
I mean, I fully agree with the two presidents, with the High Representative, that we are going through a very profound change in the world. And it goes to the core of the value of multilateralism, and it goes to the core of the value not only of the Charter of the United Nations, but also of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and all the subsequent human rights instruments that we have developed so painstakingly after the end of the Second World War. In a multipolar world, if the multipolar world does not have rules or guardrails, it's chaos, it's unpredictability, it's violence. And I think we are really at that point where we have to, and this was precisely the period before the First World War. There were no rules, there were no guardrails in the way that in the 20th century they were built up. So it allowed everyone to say, well, this is my territory. I intervene here because of on the basis of a pretext that is, of course, totally ludicrous. And I cast aside with the greatest of ease the international humanitarian law framework and the international human rights framework that was established. For us, the response has to be consistency in the approach. We have to take each and every life seriously. It's not a question of politics or ideology, it's a question of care, and it's a question of establishing the facts, which we're doing, by the way, now that we got the Council resolution in the context of what's happening in Eastern Congo. We have to apply the law, and we have to commit to the law, and we should not throw the institutions and the office holders that are meant to do this under the bus, because I see, unfortunately, a lot more of that than ever before. We have direct attacks against international institutions, against international criminal system, against office holders that we have not seen in the same way before, and we cannot afford this, because if these institutions that are meant to be the guardrails are weakened, everyone is going to be weakened. And that's really important, but it's also important, and that's what human rights does. It is not only about violations and the doom and the gloom. It is also what has transformed societies for the better, what has promoted equalities around the world, what has promoted the richness and the diversity that we so much enjoy in our world. And it has transformed societies even on the economic and social grounds, on the development front, that we cannot even imagine if we didn't have that. So we need to go back to these roots and to the basics of it and be conscious of that.
No, thank you for this statement. Now I will turn to the audience, and we have, as Munich Security Conference, we have every year a group of Munich young leaders, and they are privileged to ask the first question. We have Kasper Sitemba, who is a technical support specialist for peace building, United Nations Resident Coordinator's Office, Kenya, who can tell from the ground how it is. And please ask your question.
Thank you very much. My question goes to the two presidents, Excellency Mahama and Excellency Tshisekedi. And what we've listened today is that the global system, the international system is changing in contested ways. But at the end of the day, as a believer in multilateralism, there's consensus that there's need for strengthened multilateralism. So the question to you is, do you believe that regional organizations, as they are right now, whether it's EAC, SADC, or the African Union, have the credibility to help you or all of us address some of the challenges that we face? And are there complementarities with the UN, with the reformed UN system right now for that to be able to happen? Thank you.
I think that the United Nations should be strengthening its partnership with the regional economic communities. I was going to make a comment about peacekeeping and saying that it doesn't work in every circumstance. There are circumstances where the UN cannot restore peace because there's a violent situation taking place. I remember with ECOWAS, when we had the Liberian Civil War, it took ECOWAS to form the ECOWAS Monitoring Group, ECOMOG, to go in while fighting was taking place, secure the port area, inject ECOWAS forces in there, and protect civilians and push back the rebels and create a safe zone. It's very difficult to insert a UN force into a situation like that. And so I do think that partnerships with REX are important, and we must bring those closer. But for instance, right now, 3 of our neighbors, the Sahelian countries, are breaking away to form their own alliance. And that is because of the Islamist jihadist insurgency that is taking place. We could do a multinational joint task force, but our economies require those resources for healthcare, for education, and to provide other social services for our people. And so unless we got resources from an organization like the UN or the AU, it makes it difficult for us as a regional organization to make any intervention. And so I think that there should be stronger partnerships going forward between the regional economic communities and the United Nations.
Thank you. You want to respond?
Oui. En fait, j'ai toujours pensé que pour un continent comme l'Afrique,
yes, I've always believed that for a continent like Africa, in order for such a continent or a country on that continent can integrate properly, for example, through a free trade zone, that almost all African countries now are part of such a free trade zone. In order to do that, first of all, it's important to work together with regional economic organizations, such as the West African Economic Organization. But of course, you're right, they have to be credible. And this credibility can only be achieved if we uphold the principle that such communities have imposed on themselves, actually. If in such a regional organization you say, for example, we stand in solidarity, we are united, we have to reduce trade barriers or tariffs, and if then within that community one member state is being attacked, then there is no response to that, and that's not acceptable. So the principles of solidarity and protection are not applied, and that's a problem if we end up with such a situation. And I believe that the credibility of regional economic organizations has a lot to do with upholding what they have imposed on themselves or what they have agreed to themselves. And I believe that is the true question. Multilateralism, yes, I do believe in that too, as you've asked the question. But today, there's a lot of hypocrisy associated with that. So we do have certain agreements that we made, but they only apply to some who feel that they are untouchable. And if these obligations affect others who have the same rights, then these obligations are no longer complied with. And that's what we need to talk about before we rebuild multilateralism.
Hypocrisy or setting of double standards, and Munich Security Conference, we just issued a paper on the issue, which is great. Now, I know that Kaya Kallas has to leave a bit earlier, so the next question, please, is turned to Kaya Kallas, who would like to ask this question. Nobody for the High Representative. Yes, we have one. Please go ahead.
Hello, my name is Dubai Bilhoul. I'm the founder of Fakir Institute, a think tank in Dubai. And my question is, how do you see EU-GCC relations in the coming year? I know there was a lot of momentum towards the end of the previous administration. How do you see that relationship going forward, and in what areas of priority? Thank you.
Thank you. First, I think, well, European Union has a lot of possibilities in these turbulent times. I think in terms of multilateralism, we definitely are the reliable partner that everybody's looking at. So we see a lot of countries, but also organizations behind our doors, and we have different priorities for different regions because, you know, some are more strategic to our interest than the others. Of course, the funding or the really the most important interest or worry we have currently is the war going on in Ukraine. We can't overlook at that. So all the relationship we have with other countries as well is in that prism as well, because that is the existential threat for Europe. But there is clearly very good cooperation points for different regions, be it energy cooperation, be it you know in different spheres, and I really feel that there's an opportunity for the European Union to really be present, visible, and put the European flag up in the relationship with other countries, because we are the reliable, predictable partner. And what comes to also the multilateral organizations, I think you know we can't, of course, fill the gap if the United States is leaving that gap behind, but we want to do what we can in areas that are also strategic interest for us. So we are definitely looking ways to act as a geopolitical player and increase our geopolitical power as well.
Thank you. Next question. I think somebody wanted. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I'm the Minister of Defense of Rwanda, and I want just to put some clarification on the comment I had from the panel. So first of all, the Rwanda is committed to supporting the multilateralism. The UN as a unifying force is more crucial than ever during this period of fragmented division. The foundation of a stronger UN lies in the reinforcement of multilateralism, and we must work together to collectively address global issues that lie ahead. As we heard from the panel, the crisis in the Eastern DRC is a challenge for all of us in the region. Rwanda has been heavily affected with devastating human, political, and economic consequences of the crisis. However, Rwanda has nothing to gain from an unstable DRC. On the contrary, our vision for prosperity is tied to regional stability and economic cooperation. If I give you an example, in 2021, Rwanda exported close to 700 million USD worth of goods to the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 2022, Rwanda also, our exchange with Congo was over 33% of our total exports. Why Rwanda would be a country with an ambitious agenda for socioeconomic development and at the same time want to jeopardize this cooperation. So Rwanda's best interests and economic ambitions are better served by peace, not conflict. It is time to move beyond simplistic narratives and focus on facts and solutions.
Please. Yes.
Thank you. What I was trying to say is that we are not accepting the finger-pointing strategy because we want to know that Rwanda has the concern, and Rwanda has never attacked the Congo and will never do so. What we have done is to ensure that nothing can cross from Congo and jeopardize our security. I thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your remark. We are not able here to resolve the issue, and we don't want to have a debate on this. What I propose is that maybe you'll try on the margins to talk to each other. I mean, this conference is about peace through dialogue. So instead of making declaration, maybe you could sit down and talk, and maybe the UN can help doing this. I don't know what is happening right, but this is not the right way forward. Kaya Kallas, I think you have to leave. Thank you very much, and thanks for still staying here. Thank you. Another question, yes, please. The two ladies, and you agree between yourself who is asking the first one.
Thank you very much. My name is Edith Kimani. I'm from Kenya, and I'm also a journalist. My question is to President Tshisekedi, because you said that it's important to work closely with regional organizations, but they have to be credible. And at the same time, you've also, on many occasions, called onto the international community to say something about what's happening in your country. So the question is, do you not trust that the AU, SADC, the EAC are doing enough to resolve the situation in Eastern Congo?
Mr. President.
Vous avez parlé de l'Union africaine ou de l'Union européenne? Parce que j'ai cru que vous avez dit...
You talked about the African Union, right?
No, I think elle a parlé de l'Union africaine.
Right?
Oui.
You talked about the African
Union. Moi, j'ai eu
Union.
la traduction Union européenne. Oui. Oui, mais en fait, c'est pas que je n'ai pas confiance en l'Union africaine. D'ailleurs,
it's not as if I wouldn't trust the African Union. There is an issue with these regional economic organizations, and the same issue is one that we find with the African Union too. The worst is that the representatives of the African Union are non-permanent members of the Security Council of the United Nations, and that's a typical case that we are experiencing in my country at the moment. I'm surprised, actually, that there seems to be some kind of amnesia when it seems to be like that among the leading classes of Rwanda. Everyone can see how Rwanda's army has staged an invasion in our country, but here the minister says that they have not attacked us. So I believe they live in a different world. But let's come back to this crisis. There are three actors, or three members that represent Africa in the Security Council. They are non-permanent members, and they are not able to come to a resolution that will ban the malignant acts of Rwanda against us. And there are members on the Council that block this resolution that could condemn Rwanda. So all day there's talk about unity of the African continent, solidarity and fraternity, but when concrete realities are concerned, we are not able to uphold these principles and to voice them. And that's the problem about multilateralism in Africa. That really is the big issue. And that's why it really affects the credibility of our organizations. We have to be honest about that. At the international level, there's similar hypocrisy. It's unfortunate that Mrs. Kallas had to leave, because in the European Union too, a memorandum of understanding has been signed with Rwanda, a country that has no resources, no natural resources, and the memorandum says that you want to exploit natural resources, but the country doesn't have any, and the country is well known for exploiting its neighbor. Do you think that is normal? That's a huge hypocrisy, right? Luckily, this is now public knowledge and has led to a mass movement, and now pressure is being put on the European Union to change that. It's unfortunate that you're only asking this question now, because it would have been really interesting to hear the High Representative on that question.
Stick around, so maybe you have a chance to pick it up with her afterwards. Although she's not in charge of the trade, nevertheless, she's member of the. Now we have 15 seconds left. Can you ask 10 seconds and have a 5-second answer?
Yes, I have one question to the DRC president. My name is Mime Fo. I am journalist with the German broadcaster DW. Today we are having reports that the M23 rebels have taken over Bukavu, just at the airport in that strategic city. I wanted to first of all find out what your reaction is to this latest news from the DRC. And the second question that I wanted to find out from you is, it seems like African regional bodies are failing, and even you are here abroad also trying to seek solutions to the situation in the DRC. Is it possible for you to have one-on-one discussions with the president of Rwanda to put an end to the conflict in the DRC, and what is stopping you from doing that? That's my first question, and the other question is to
one question only.
Okay, yes.
Sorry.
Je vais commencer par la dernière question sur les discussions avec le président du Rwanda.
I'll start with the last question about talking with the president of Rwanda. Yes, we've done that on 15th of December. A peace agreement was supposed to be signed, or negotiations were supposed to take place, but he did not come. He attacked us, and he violated the integrity of our borders. And for this reason, the question should be posed to him. And given the most recent events, of course, that is an affront, and we now have to address that. We are resolved to regain the integrity of our territory, and we will achieve that. It's now up to the international community to take on responsibility. The international community is armed, and it has supported Rwanda in the past. Rwanda is exploiting Congo's resources, so it's up to the international community to do everything to prevent this conflict spreading in the region, because we will not accept this kind of behavior. But there are other countries too that feel threatened. Burundi, for example, they've closed their borders to Rwanda, and there are also other countries that are thinking of what kind of position to take. And of course, it could lead to a spillover in the region. We will assume our responsibility, that's clear, but it's now also up to the international community to do the same.
In this panel, we concentrated a bit too much on the DRC. On the other hand, this is a conflict that is happening right now, where people lose their lives, and so it's also good for this conference not only to look at Ukraine, but also look at what is happening in the DRC. When I was in the UN, our African colleagues in the Security Council always said, well, African solutions to African problems. But I understand from what you said that we are not there yet. But I can only tell you from the experience of the European Union, it is really very important that you have these international organizations, the African Union or the regional organizations, that look after these problems and do it through discussions, debate, negotiations. And of course, as you said, they have to be empowered to do that. So I hope also that we make some progress there. And thank you to Volker Türk for being here. He is the one who is defending human rights. Not an easy job for him to do. But I think the most important is, and you said that before, on the UN, on the rules-based order, we have to go by the law, we have to go have state principled, no matter who is the culprit, we have to make the point, otherwise we lose the credibility. But I still believe, as I said in my speech, we don't have an alternative to the Charter of the UN, to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and thank you for confirming this, and let's work together to make it better. So thank you very much, and again, thank you for the 2 African presidents that you are spending your time here, but it's very valuable that you bring the issues here to Munich. Thank you.